Hello everybody, my name is Biffa and this is the fourth of 13 planned Dev Diary deep dives coming every Monday all the way through until September, where we take an in-depth look at every Cities Skylines 2 update, including the Colossal Order Dev Diaries, Dev Insights and more. This week we're diving into the topic of zones and signature buildings, which is packed with exciting new updates and features that we can look forward to in Cities Skylines 2. Next week, the topic is city services, so be sure to subscribe and be here this coming Monday as well for that Dev Diary deep dive. Okay, so let's dive right into zones and signature buildings. Okay, we're going to start off with the video Dev Diary, and I'm going to need your help. I lost my contact lens today, can't find it anywhere, dropped it in the car. Long story short, if I miss anything in the video, you need to let me know in the comments below, because with my contact lens and I'm squinting at the screen to get all the details for you, without it, I'm going to need your help. Okay, let's dive in and see how we go.
Every decision you make weaves a thread into the fabric of your city. But don't for a second imagine a smooth, seamless surface. Cities don't work like that. Instead, it's an urban patchwork marked by the realities of life and living. You'll create and stitch it together with zoning.
Once again, great looking city. So this little section here, we're going to get lots of different info views, which we're going to get a bit more detail as the game goes on. But you'll notice the different colours of the roads, and we'll be talking about that as we go through the video. So keep your eye on that, and the different types of buildings. I think we had residential, this is commercial, then we'll get the other ones as well.
People live and work. You create these residential, commercial,
there we go, offices at the end.
Zones with zoning tools.
Okay, so now we're getting a bit more detail, aren't we? We've got the different residential zones. We've got 6 different residential zones down here. Again, the 2 themes we can choose from. But just looking at this little map here, so they're going to be talking about what we can place and what we can't place. And this suitability is something that pops up, which we get more details about, of residential suitability. So if you look at this pink road down here, that makes sense. A bridge across the water, nobody can live either side of that. Noisy areas perhaps down here, not suitable. What I'm struggling to get my head around is the residential buildings are green. So all of these buildings are all residential buildings. We can see them everywhere. But some of them are actually on roads that say they're not suitable. Is that because there's already buildings there, perhaps? That's what it's saying. And then we've got the ground pollution, of course, which is shown as well. So that is obviously something to take into consideration. But I think this is a great idea, helping us design our cities. And then these little icons here, as we see when the video goes on, these are all the signature buildings. So there's a lot of signature buildings that we'll be able to place, which is good to know.
They work in a couple of different ways.
Again, there we go. We've got now the commercial ones. We've got 2 different types of commercial zoning available, as we can see here. So commercial buildings all in blue, lots and lots of signature buildings, which I believe, if I remember, it comes up a bit later that we can place each one more than once. Possibly, we'll hold that thought. But again, the suitability, so lots of places are saying, so it's not just that it's over the water and you're not able to build, it's taking other things into consideration with the suitability. So lots of places suitable for commercial. Up there for some reason isn't, don't know why, but we can see it's down sort of towards the red colour. So yeah, excellent new tool. I'm liking it.
Click and drag over cells on the map.
So here we can see, so this is the residential one. They're going to talk about the zoning tools. We know about them. It's like the little drippy one. You can zone like one little area, the drag, do a whole area, or the individual one. We've seen it before. But this here, nothing in here. And a lot of this is suitable for residential. For some reason, these ones are not suitable. I'm assuming that's a noisy building or a school or something. It's got like a little steeple there. Not quite sure. I'm thinking that's going to be some sort of school. That looks like a high school. Maybe that's university. Just throwing that. I'm basing that on the Cities Skylines 1 models that we've had. But yeah, so we can see the difference, and that will give us a good idea of where we're going to be placing, which is interesting to see. All right, let's continue.
To zone large rectangular areas. Zone all adjacent cells with one click. Or get granular. Zoning a neighborhood cell by cell.
What I like to see, zoning on a roundabout, not so suitable. This roundabout, more suitable. Darn it. I would have thought zoning on a roundabout would just be out. But, you know, little ones like that, I think we can let that slide.
When you establish a city,
now we're going to see some interesting things. 5, 10, 12 maps that we can start off with. Windy fjords. Oh, some of these look really good. I love the detailed look of these maps as well. Very, very nice. And then if we just look down here, each map's got its own theme, which I'll talk about in a minute. The climate I thought was interesting. So keep your eye on that. We already know about seasons. So how much the climate is going to make a difference to what we're doing. Very interesting to see that. And then also outside connections, your normal stuff you've got on there, but also power added on there. And then natural resources, you've got sort of an area on that one and then a tonnage on the other ones. Weather, you'll see on the next screen in a moment, the option for like unlimited money and that sort of thing. There isn't one on there for unlimited natural resources, which is something that we had that I always played with, because I always thought, you know, in the life of a city, you know, sort of trying to make it in real life a little bit, you know, oil running out doesn't happen that often, does it? So I always had unlimited oil and ore. So whether that will be added, modded, who knows, we shall see. So this is a European theme.
you choose a map.
North American, and we can see the temperatures changing as well, which is interesting.
Dictates if your city's buildings will have a North American or European architectural style.
So even if a map has got one style or another, you can then pick that map and change it. So interesting here, just want to have a look. So it's European, we've got -3 to 19, Northern Hemisphere. What changes when North American's picked? North American wasn't picked, okay. I thought it was going to be picked. But here we have natural disasters. Can't see what that one is above there. Let's just skip back. Okay, left-hand traffic, excellent. So depending on where you are in the world. Natural disasters, so that, there we go, confirmed as included in the base game. What disasters there are, I don't know. Unlock all. So obviously this is a test map they're doing. Unlimited money, that disables achievements as always. And then tutorials you can have at any point on or off. So that's good to know. It's like a little dice by the name, some random city names, in case you haven't got your own tea-related name that you want to use.
Buildings will have a North American or European architectural style. You can now use zoning tools to mix it up. Go on, sprinkle a little North American flair into your European city, or vice versa. Okay, you know how zoning tools work, but...
So we've seen that before, haven't we? We've got normally in the little icons down the bottom here, you can pick European or North American building type. So whatever your map is, you can then individually choose to change what buildings you're putting in, what style. So you can have one, the other, or both, which I think is great.
What can you zone? Well, let's start with residential zones, the places and spaces where citizens relax with.
Just wanted to look at the details on these. I just think they're really nice. They've got a nice, big, long, open yard. This is more the sort of detail that I would have expected from like an Avania European detailed pack of houses, you know, that sort of thing off the workshop. And this is in the base game, so looking fantastically brilliant, I must say. All the hedges, the grass, the way it all joins up. Yeah, it looks really nice. Fences in between. Fences or hedges in between most. Some of them just have it open. Okay, that's just the way it is. But, oh, I'll have a quick sip of tea while we listen to the next bit.
Friends, raise families.
Had to just stop and look at the details again. Lots of people from Finland living in this area. But I love these effects on the windows with the lights on, table and chairs. Yeah, looking really, really nice.
Rest their heads night after night. There are now 6 residential zone types. 2 will be familiar.
So 6 residential zone types. So let's just nip back and have a look at those as we go through. So we've got the low density housing. Let's just nip through on the frames on these. The medium density row housing, you can see from the picture. Then we get normal medium density. We then get the mixed housing. So that's commercial on the bottom, apartments on the top, which is great. And we also have low rent housing. Now, I think that's important because we've been talking a lot about the flow of the game, how you can affect things with taxes and stuff. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So having low rent housing available for certain things is going to play a big part in the game as well, I think. And then we have the high density housing as well.
Low density housing, detached houses for single families, and high density housing, tall towers.
So that's what we had before.
Residents. New zoning types include medium.
Something that's been spotted a few times: houses for sale. So to me, it perhaps seems... We've got air conditioning units in the windows as well. Great. Very good. It seems to me that when people move out, that the houses don't necessarily just disappear. You know, somebody dies, moves out, whatever, leaves the city. That the house is now then available for someone else to move into, which will be an interesting game mechanic.
Density row housing and medium density apartment buildings. There's low rent housing now too. Huge apartment buildings with tiny apartments. Finally, there's mixed housing. Here, residents live in apartments above ground floor shops.
So that is fantastic. If we're getting sort of European flavours of those, having high streets, city centres, particularly with the older European buildings. But even when the modders get their hands on this sort of thing, and I'm just imagining some of the old town centres you can go to with the really modern shops on the bottom and then really old buildings on the top. That is just going to really look fantastic.
Mixed housing adds next-level realism because homes and shops rub elbows like most real-world city centers. Ready to talk business?
Again, looking at this, I mentioned before about the difference in the billboards and things. And some people said, yeah, you know, there are some that are the same, but, you know, we've got two the same on the same building here. And maybe those two on the same building. But overall, I do like the difference in the style of the buildings and the difference in the billboards as well. I think that's going to add, you know, extra flair to how things look, definitely. When you don't see repeatable things too much that don't make sense, it definitely looks better.
You'll create dedicated commercial zones where...
Right, so this is where I think we're seeing more of the signature buildings. This little thing here, so these are commercial buildings. Oh, it says commercial signature buildings are pink, but these aren't pink. Maybe I'm wrong then, but a bit later in the video they place one down and it's got this. This is beta gameplay, so maybe that is something that isn't quite sorted out yet, or maybe this is something else entirely. And also we've got here how many customers. So that's interesting. So that surely changes over time. Whereas this one here, the suitability, I imagine might change. You stick an industry down, the road's going to go red and they're going to say they don't like it too noisy or something like that. Customers will change as well. More people moving in, the suitability will go up. I think that's, yeah. My brain's just thinking about how this is going to change so much. How we build the cities, which is good. What do you think? Let me know. Oh, just looking at the colour here, look. Customers, these are all different colour over there. Oh, I think that's the road colour though, isn't it? That's a building colour, yeah. Okay, let's carry on.
Companies sell the locally produced and imported goods people need and want. Your commercial zones are also where citizens and tourists eat out, catch the latest blockbuster, and dance until dawn. You'll establish...
Now, this industry thing here and what's coming up afterwards with the farms, very, very interesting. So we've got industrial buildings here, normal zoned industrial buildings. By the look of it, it says here, industrial buildings, building colour, no signature buildings. But this here would normally be this great big thing in an ore industry. So we've got these along here. I don't think we've yet seen this at the end. And I think that's going to be something perhaps to do with specialised industry or something along those lines. But definitely this here, this was for ore. And also look at the shape of it as well. We're seeing it lit up yellow as industrial. But then we'll look at this in a minute and there's a real big clue that comes out for something to do with this.
Industrial zones with factories, workshops, and warehouses where businesses can store goods ready for distribution or export.
Great looking buildings. Okay, we've got the offices as well. So we've got a bit hard to tell the difference. Offices, this pink and then slightly different pink for the signature buildings, but yeah, again, suitability. So yeah, great for those. Two different types, so low and high.
Office zones. Here you'll find small, low-density buildings with only a few businesses in operation. You'll also get the glittering high-density towers that define your city's silhouette in the sky. Growing your city and zoning go hand in hand. Here's an example. You zone residential areas that boost the population, and with it, the demand for jobs. You respond...
This is it. Darn it. Got so excited I pressed the wrong button. Okay, here we go. Right, this is it. Look, it says natural resources in the top left up here. Something is placed here, but this zone is being drawn around. Look at that. It's got waypoints. It's got a node, move node here. It's got the nice snapping thing. We've got sort of like an angle thing showing over here, and it's taking up this weird shaped space, which is looking great. And I think if we carry, oh, does it say up here? It's got the level, company, almost meat, making vegetables. So this is like a vegetable place. But that is great, filling up gaps. And we'll see as it goes along with the farms and stuff as well.
Spawned by creating an industrial zone with...
You know, this is a farm. There we go. I mean, that is moving away from the square, rectangle, right-angled edged farms that we had before, and having to monkey around with assets, overlapping them, and all the problems in Cities Skyline 1, all the ways we worked around how the game was made, I suppose. To this, nodes, fill up the spaces, and we've got our farms that take up lands, which we're going to see in the next little shot as well, I think, if I remember right. Look at it. Factories in the foreground, farmland with various sort of little buildings. This, I think, is like the main building, or maybe that looks like a fence there. Is that like a separate one here? And then this fence comes down and goes around this one here. So maybe that's two buildings. We've got two different farms. This one, for some reason, has got other buildings in it as well. So maybe that's 3 or 4 different farms, and this is one farm over here. But love the way that works and the way it fits with the land as well. So before you place them down, everything had to be flat unless you're using weird assets and procedural objects and stuff. But now, I mean, that looks to me like there's a bump in that piece of land, and it's not flat and that dips down. Might be my bad eyes deceiving me. But that's what it looks like, which is just great. I'm loving it.
We'll get to work. Now, these factories produce goods,
but
they won't stay in business long without somewhere to sell them. You solve that.
That just looks, having that all around the outside of your city, farms as far as the eye can see, a bit like in real life, or in real life imagined cities. That is really, really cool. I'm liking that.
Problem by expanding commercial zones. You see, each zone helps create the momentum you need to realize the city of your dreams. And it wouldn't be the city of your dreams without signature buildings.
Ah, here we go.
These are unique residential.
Okay, so we get the difference here, can't we? We've got the normal row houses, I'm assuming, to the left and the right, and then this lovely signature row house, I'm going to call it. That's what it looks like to me, where it's like it's just like a next level up, isn't it? And we've seen before that these, or we're going to see later, that these add bonuses and things as well. So, and they were talking about that in the video. So, yeah, really nice addition. Liking that.
Residential, commercial, industrial, and office buildings
that you
unlock as your city expands.
Oh, look at that one. That's got like a pool on the top as well. That is fantastic. And we know there's a lot of signature buildings.
They're free to build, and you can plop them anywhere. Plop.
Oh, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is the signature. I'm pointing on the screen. Let's use the mouse. This is the signature buildings tab then, isn't it? So 9 for industry, and you can plop them down. That is a big, looks like a shop. Sort of really squinting at the screen now. These have got like chimneys on the top. So whether that's a shop or a warehouse type thing as it's industry, but I'm liking that a lot. Industrial, yeah, we've seen groundwater deposits. Wind speed and direction. So wind speed we've had before. Groundwater deposits. I'm pretty sure that is not something that we've mentioned before. So can we now pump water from the ground and use it that way? Which will be interesting, because you've got to be careful not to pollute that as well. Industrial suitability, we've seen that. I'm just looking at this up here. Is that another sort of... You can see it's taken in all the different shapes. Is that another... Oh, man, I'm leaning into the screen again. Some other type of industry or something? What do you think that is up there? Let me know. Let me know. Right, let's... Oh, so many new things. Let's carry on.
It's Cities Skylines lingo. Go on, say it.
All together now. Plop. Okay, and here we've got the residential. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 signature buildings. Corundum condos. So, and they just seem to fit in so well. I like this. So this seems to be, instead of like the unique buildings that we had before, which, to be honest, some of them just looked so out of place, or they were so huge and unique and big that if your city didn't sort of get up to that level where you could put those sort of things down, they looked out of place. But these, these are the normal zone buildings along the back, and that just fits in fantastically. Like, it's just that extra little bit special than what you've already got. But yeah, loads already. 12, whatever it was for the Industry 9. Are we going to see... So it's for all of the different zone types as well. So if we're going to see any for the other ones...
What's so special about signature buildings?
That's it.
Well, they function like...
Oh! This is still the residential one, yeah. So I'm pretty sure this is still the signature building thing over the top.
Any zoned building.
Oh, here we go. Mixed. So we've got 3 in the mixed residential.
A home for...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 in the commercial.
People, a warehouse for...
That one we've already added up. Offices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Excellent. Yeah, these must be signature. I'm sure that's what that symbol means. Oh, that is... So whatever the... Just tell me what the total of that is. I didn't keep track as I went along. But that is loads. And the fact that they benefit the city as well when you place them, which we'll talk about more in a bit.
An office for workers, but they can elevate the neighborhood in unique ways.
There we go.
Signature buildings can also bring citywide benefits. Zone and place your signature buildings.
Yeah, it's got the symbol, look.
So each city district flourishes and plays its part in the success of the whole city. Life's rich tapestry has never been richer than in Cities Skylines 2.
Oh, looking great. Right, so now we're going to jump back to the developer insight video, public and cargo transportation, are the words they are trying to mash together, that was released on last Thursday. So let's dive in and take a look at that. And there's a load of new stuff in this one as well.
Public and cargo transportation are as important in Cities Skylines 2 as they were in Cities Skylines 1.
Okay, so we've got waypoints being added where stops are, which of course we get that anyway. Now we've got waypoints without stop. So if you look here, here's the stop, and there's another stop down here. It's saying move this waypoint here. And we know stops are placed separately. So waypoints without stops, that is an absolutely fantastic addition for manoeuvring our bus traffic where we want it to go, which we'll talk about a bit more in a moment.
First, you create the depots. Then you set up the stations or the stops. And then you create the lines with the line tool.
Okay, so pretty simple.
All of the land-based public and cargo transportation types need depots to function. The depots send out the vehicles, and they also have upgrades that improve their functionality.
Now, this little bit here with the upgrade, the modules, as I call them, upgrades as they're called in-game, it looks like there is some flexibility as to placement. So I'm going to just dive back and have a look as this is placed down on here. We'll go frame at a time. So it's picked up, it's moved along, and then you can't place it, and then you can place it, it lets you place it there, and then it moves along again, and you can place it there. It sort of jumps, doesn't it, between these little zones. So whether that's the same with all the modules, the upgrades, that there's some flexibility. If we had a road around the back, they could be placed against those. Question mark, that's me wondering. That would be good. Also about the depots with the maintenance, does that mean that buses and other land transportation have to periodically return to the depot for maintenance? Because if that's true, you no longer want to put all your depots on a distant island just to get them out of the way or look nice. You want them in areas where the buses can come back to visit frequently, perhaps.
Their functionality.
Also, we get these stars popping up. I used to like the happy faces, so I'm not quite sure whether I like the change to stars or not. But yeah, I don't know, we'll see.
You can upgrade your bus depot to service electric buses.
Increased capacity for rail yard.
So it seems like some of the upgrades are just put in place. They're just plopped on the building and it just slightly changes the look of the building, I think. But some of them have got that additional module that then is added onto the side. So yeah, 2 different types of upgrades by the look of it.
And dispatch center for taxi depot.
Yeah, more stars
also,
there.
Many of the different transportation modes can be connected by you to the outside connections to create the lines.
So just before we get onto that with the taxis, did you notice it said something there? Yeah, so there was the upgrade for electric taxis, which this one here, but this upgrade allows taxis to pick up passengers from all over the city, not just dedicated taxi stands. So that tells you two things. We're going to have dedicated taxi stands, and then, of course, we can have people be picked up from anywhere. So I'm assuming they're just going to flag them down on the street, which is a great addition.
And dispatch center for taxi depot. Also, many of the different transportation modes can be connected by you to the outside connections to create the...
So, back to the outside connections. We've been talking a lot about those, but I wanted to pick up on here. In the harbour, there is a policy, which looks like that's this one here, of a parking fee, which you can adjust. So, that looks to me, if this whole thing here is the harbour, you've got some parking spaces here, that the adjustable parking fee isn't just for car parks that you manually add in your city yourself. It's actually for the ones built into buildings. Well, in this case, the harbour anyway. So I'm assuming that's going to be the same for if train stations had parking spaces and airports and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, something new there. And maybe it looks like it's a tick box, so you don't have to have a fee, or you can have a fee anything from not having it on up to, I mean, if that's 20... 40, 50 altogether, something like that. So you can then encourage or discourage people from driving in, and then maybe discourage them so they use trains to get to your harbour instead. So yeah, very good, very good.
Lines that you want.
There we go. So that's the outside connection. They've made that ship line. So again, we're in control of those ship lines. And that ship line there, it says ship line 1, oh, that's ship line 2. With a ticket price. So I'm assuming that with the outside ones, you're not necessarily charging people for coming in from the outside. Don't know about that. Oh no, there we go. So that's the ship path that's being shown here. Two-way ship path, ship line 1. So there's no charge for that. Okay, that makes sense.
Make your own intercity bus lines.
And there we go. Intercity bus lines set up yourself. And no charge on that.
Are included in the base game.
Yay, trams! I do love the trams.
Cargo ships can carry a lot of cargo. They are slow, they completely skip traffic jams, but once they get to harbor and unload their cargo, they can cause a lot of traffic as the trucks pick up the cargo and transport it all over the city.
In cities,
so that's what I want to hear. I want to hear that it's still possible to get traffic, not just because I want to fix other people's cities. That's never going to end, I'm sure. But just for my own benefit, it is a nice challenge in the game to have traffic in the game. So I'm assuming when a cargo ship turns up that there's going to be an outpouring of trucks, and you need to make sure you build ready for that. Listen to this little bit here.
too, you can draw cargo lines between stops and outside connections. You are able to adjust the number of vehicles as well as the operating hours.
Nice colour options.
With the buses, you can create intricate lines that skip traffic jams and busy intersections. They no longer need to go directly
waypoints
from stop to stop.
There we go. That is really cool. I like that.
Citizens care about cost. You can adjust the ticket price per line. If you make the cost too high, they might not ride your public transportation.
Buses and taxis are unlocked with milestone progression, but every other transportation...
And here we go. The first look at the development tree. So we were speaking about that before, weren't we? That development points and unlocking things were sort of mentioned. So what are we seeing here? And I think this is a fix to the biggest problem I had with Cities Skylines 1. I've mentioned it before, was the fact that you're overwhelmed. Every time you hit a milestone in your city, little town, big city, whatever, you're suddenly unlocking 30 different things and what you're going to do with it. But obviously we've got options here for roads, electricity, water, health, garbage, education, fire, police administration. So some of these might have more than one thing with it rather than just police. We've got administration as well, transport, parks, and that is very similar to this down here. I mean, we've I don't know, we've had postal services in the past. It looks like a little talking icon, so maybe something like that. But we can see down in the corner, we've got available development point 7. So that'll be that number down there, I would assume. And then you can unlock, I'm thinking this one you start with anyway, basic stuff. And then you just unlock these. So each city will be different. You can, do I want the welfare office? Do I want to go down the headquarters and the prison? Welfare office, I wonder what that does. I'm hovering over it, hoping to have a little thing pop up. And it won't. City Hall. So yeah, again, choices to spend our development points and unlock the city as we want it is excellent. Loving it, loving it.
Station type you can unlock.
Okay, let's just stop there before we miss anything else. So, as he said, we get the basics. I think it was buses. We get the basics anyway. Then buses and taxis, wasn't it? Yeah, that was it. And then you unlock. So you can go train, tram, subway, or some of the maps that we saw earlier were very island-based, lots of water. She might come down the water route or go down the air route instead. So every city is going to be different. International Airport. Why is Space Centre on there? That's a question that I'm wondering about. Transportation, Space Centre. Are we going to Mars? Is there something going on there that I don't know about? Or is it just like a building at the end? I guess we'll see. I guess we'll find out. Is that going to be... Because we haven't got unique buildings anymore. Is that going to be the one that brings in tourists from like other planets? Aliens confirmed for Cities Skylines 2. There we go.
By using the development points.
There we go. So we're going to see this be used down to 3 in both places. Yeah, that's great. So this being put down here is some sort of airport, as we can see. Very huge. Very expensive as well, which is good. And we get an XP points, which has got this little thing here, which is given XP here, which I think is maybe this green bar, which then leads to development points, which then leads to unlocking the milestones and unlocking all the things that we want. That's sort of the way I'm looking at this little symbol here. Ooh, looking nice.
The new international airport is huge. It's the size of a small town. Ooh. Yes, but I was so sad. It's the size of a small town. I'm so nervous. So they will see it. They will see through me.
I just want to say I'm loving the fact that we're getting to see the developers behind the game, but also, you know, they're just human like the rest of us. Not everybody's used to talking in front of a camera and being interviewed and all this sort of thing. And I just want to say thank you to all of them for doing it for us, even though they're very nervous and maybe some of them might have said no, had to have been convinced. I don't know, I'm not there, but you know, I really do appreciate it. So well done. We all appreciate it as well. Let's continue. All helicopters.
The game also features a line overview panel where you can inspect all your public and cargo lines. You can also access each line through the panel.
The transportation info view panel has become much more detailed.
The transportation info view lists all the different lines in your city categorized by public and cargo transportation. It also includes information about how many passengers there has been, and it also includes information about...
So looking at the cargo lines, before when we've had the info view down the side, I've mentioned quite a few times that there's trucks listed on there and it will tell us how much goods have been sent out, but there's never any lines on there where there is for trains and boats. I think that's because there isn't going to be. Looking at this, we've got trains, boats and planes, and we've got the routes that we've been seeing set up. We've got how much cargo they're taking, all the other information we would expect. So I'm thinking that with the trucks, that is just going to be the game running. They know they need the cargo from the harbour or that cargo train depot or whatever, and they're going to move it around themselves. So as much as I would have loved individual lines, I can see once you get down to the truck level, you're then talking about lines to and from buildings, and I don't think that would work with it, because I mean lines in between warehouses and cargo airports and things like that would be good for control over goods if that's possible, or something to be added in the future. But yeah, to individual buildings that wouldn't make sense, would it?
About the amount of cargo transported per type per month.
Let's go back and have a quick look at that.
Per month.
So what have we got on there? So we've got the cargo railway route. Man, that's a hard thing to say. That's almost as bad as rural road. So the length, how many stops, the cargo. So we can do it with the railway, which is fantastic. So we've got the control over that, where we want our goods going, how many vehicles, the schedule again, colour and stuff like that, normal things. And we can sort of see how much they're carrying as well. And I'm assuming this will be the 2 stops, won't it, backwards and forwards. So yeah, excellent. There we go. This is what I was saying about, look. So there's no... Oh. Trucks have disappeared off of there. Or is that... Oh, no, it's there. I've got my contact lens in it. It blurred into the background. Yeah, there's the trucks. This is what I'm talking about. This one here, I think, is always going to be blank, the routes, just from what I've seen on that other screen. So, yeah. Well, you know, I can see how that will work for the best. Ah! Laser light show. Watch your eyes. And I think that's the end. There we go. Fantastic. So now... Right, now we're going to have a look at the pictures and the information in the Dev Diary from Colossal Orders website, and there is always so much more in this. So first of all, we're going to be having a look at the zoning tools. So the only thing really that's changed is the D-zone tool has been removed, because to be honest, we all just right click and remove the zones, but you've still got the normal ways of the dropper, the marquee tool, the individual little tile tool for zoning as well. And also you can put a zone on top of another zone, which is something we didn't have before. So that's easy. So really, you don't really need to de-zone unless you're removing zoning altogether. So that is an excellent little tweak there to the zoning tools. And then we have architectural themes. Now, something that's been spotted many times is the inbuilt EU and USA themes. You've got your overall city theme choice, which we saw earlier on, but also you can individually choose themes of different houses as you're building. So I don't know what the overall theme of this map was when this was built, but you can see the row houses on the right are a different theme from the row houses on the left. And what's going to come from workshop or content creator packs. Now that will be exciting to be able to have those built into the game nice and easily. What themes would you like to see? Let me know with a comment below. So now on to zone types. We've got 6 different zone types, with the new ones including medium density row or wall-to-wall housing, as you can see in this picture. Loving the look of those buildings there, particularly with the little balconies on some of those houses there. Very, very good. Medium density apartments, mixed housing with shops on the ground floor, and low rent housing as well. We've also got to carefully manage our land value, so no more just chucking everything in the kitchen sink at a new area to max the land value out and make everyone happy, because higher land value brings with it higher rent costs, which if it's an individual lower density house, that means the rent is very expensive for that house. If it's apartments, a block of flats with lots of different people living there, obviously that higher land value, higher rent is spread out amongst all the people that live in the building. We seem to be getting a lot more people living in buildings as well. So is that realistic population mod now added to the game as well as we've seen real-time mod sort of added, haven't we, in lots of different things. So yeah, a lot more stuff being added. So let's take a closer look at some of these zones. So we've got mixed housing. So definitely 100% confirmed multiple times now that we've got these medium residential buildings which have the commercial running along the bottom, as we can see in the picture. So that new type that we haven't had before, very welcome addition to the game. Commercial residential on the same plot, and also they share the rent cost between them, which is very good. So building city centres, I think of like British city centres, high streets with these shops on the lower floor of apartments, definitely going to bring more realism to those inner cities. And then there's commercial zones, so low and high density. Once again, we have this goods category that's mentioned, which we know and love from Cities Skylines 1, being split down into cars, groceries, clothes, paper products, and likely more as well. I still think this is pointing towards a more in-depth game mechanic of making sure we fill the needs of each of these different goods items, these individual goods, which if true would be absolutely fantastic. Very much in the vein of other games you think of Transport Fever, that's been mentioned a few times. That granular control over your production chains would just be great. In this picture here we can see the infamous gas or petrol stations that have been mentioned. We saw it in the little chirps, didn't we, in the corner. It's got mentioned in previous Dev Diaries. But as this is a low commercial zoning, that's the name of the picture, I think I'm calling it now that the gas stations will just pop up when there's a need, so that I don't think we'll see them all the time, which will be good, but when there's a need I think these are going to pop up from place to place. So Find It mod will be great eventually for grabbing whichever of these models you want to put down yourself. But as it is now with vanilla, once we get that, it will just be whatever the game decides to give us. So now on to industrial zones. So whereas the commercial zones are providing either the locally obtained or shipped in goods to the citizens of your city, the industrial buildings are the ones that are manufacturing these goods locally. And we've mentioned before that the cost is lower if they're selling and providing that locally rather than shipping it in from outside. An interesting line in the Dev Diary which says, manufacturing encompasses most of the industrial zones as factories and workshops, while warehouses appear here and there answering to the needs of the different companies and their production process. So again, it seems like there's sort of a new game mechanic here where the game is deciding what companies to spawn in the industrial buildings in the zoned area, and also when the game, the AI, whatever, thinks they need to spawn a warehouse in. So whether that's that we don't ever place warehouses and the game just decides itself, we'll have to see. But there's also a hint of that production chain again, isn't there? With some goods are manufactured in your industry, sold to commercial, then either sold to end users or to be converted into other products like beverages and entertainment. So much deeper and broader chain appearing. Again, there's another hint at the much deeper city dynamic going on in the background with this little quote. It says, continuing to sell to outside connections will further decrease the profit as they have to ship the goods further and further to new buyers, simulating the eventual oversaturation of the market. Companies in general seek to reevaluate their business every now and then, adjusting the number of employees to match the current business landscape and market needs. Wow. So now we've got this overall fluctuating market that's going on with the goods where you can have too many things produced and the game will adjust itself as to how many people they've got working there, if their profits are going down. I'm assuming that'll have the knock-on effect of businesses disappearing and other ones coming in and there's different needs. So more ways your city can grow, change, fluctuate based on the needs and wants of its occupants and the surrounding sort of virtual cities that there are as well. That's all going to add together to make your city feel even more alive, I'm sure. So now office zones, they of course have low and high density buildings from small offices to large skyscrapers. We've got some small ones shown in the picture here. We saw some large ones in the video. They also produce goods and provide services, not only for the citizens directly, but for other commercial companies too. And there's this good that's been mentioned, one of the goods, software. And that's highlighted as being very important to your industry and offices, as that good, singular, can be further changed into other goods such as telecom and finance, which benefits customers in some way as well. The fact that this one item, software, is singled out and mentioned in such a detailed way really gives me hope for these production chains that I keep mentioning in Cities Skylines 2. As I always say, giving players more choice adds to the fun of building your city, doesn't it? And then zone suitability, this new interesting game mechanic with this zone suitability info view. I'm assuming this is perhaps one for residential with the green colour there, showing you which areas are more suitable to which zone types. Much more deeper information than just your demand bar. You'd see your demand bar go up, you'd whack a load of commercial down if that's what you need, and that'd basically be it. Give it the services it needs and you could probably, as long as you sort of planned your city out reasonably well, be good to go. But now you've got where potential customers might be for commercial zone, ground pollution for residential zone, high land value you might want to avoid if you're going for the lower sort of rent residential buildings. So what you build in your city now has an additional knock-on effect to how you fulfill the zoning demands that you have, which I think is nice. So now we've got this overall zone demand screen, which is showing us on the screen the medium, high, commercial and industry. And if you can see, there's a scroll bar at the side. So obviously you can have the lower ones, and offices would be on there as well. That would make sense. But we can have a closer look at what affects the demand for these different zones. As before, each zone type has a knock-on effect to others. So people move in, need somewhere to live, they need jobs, need places to spend money, places to be entertained. So we need more industry, more commercial, which means we need more residents to fill the jobs, and round we go. Let me just read this quote. What do you think of this? So adjusting taxes for the different education levels as well as the various goods produced and sold in the city can have a great effect on local demand. Taxes can also be used to favour different goods and products manufacturing in the city or simply give a helping hand to fledgling industries. Yeah, so not just taxes for, residential commercial industry and offices and low and high density like we had before, but it says there we can change goods based on education level as well as the various goods produced and sold in the city. So we can affect which goods are made out of all these goods that we've been talking about depending on what our tax rates are. So again, the overall banner of goods that we've always had before has been split down into all these different ones, which is fantastic, a deeper goods game mechanic. So let's take a look at how each one of these is affected. So if we look at the residential demand on the top there, we can see that in-game panel to show some of the reasons why the demand could be higher or lower. Got the little sections there with the red minus and the green plus. So looking at the medium density, it looks like unoccupied buildings. So there isn't any unoccupied buildings, I would assume, with the minus. But there is happiness. There is good taxes. I'm assuming higher taxes isn't going to necessarily bring people in. So maybe that's a plus to the taxes, plus to students. So they're going to need somewhere to live. Not so many available jobs. So maybe that's why the medium density residential demand isn't maxed out, because there is a couple of minuses there, so that makes sense. And I think it's the same for the high density as well, isn't it? Yeah, so keeping on top of your housing as you expand will be paramount in the successful growth of your city overall, as we can see in the next picture there. Yeah, that residential construction. So we're going to have to decide how much residential we want, because that's going to affect the demand, and we might want higher density houses to be built, but we can't because we've got too much lower densities. That makes sense. So yeah, a lot to juggle and think about there. So back to our demand section, looking at the commercial demand, we can see there's a plus by each one of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things that are listed there. And what's interesting is the ones that are listed there are different from the other ones. So whether there's a load of different items that can go into this list, whether this is the 5 that affect that's the 5 that affect residential, I don't know. But gas station availability is mentioned in there. Not quite sure how that would mean that there's enough demand for more commercial. I don't know anyway, but we can see how a plus on all of those makes that demand go up. And then looking at the industrial demand, and I think this one's quite interesting because on the medium density residential demand, we had 2 with a minus and 3 with a plus, and the demand was still quite high. Whereas this one here, it's about 50% on the industry demand, but only one of them has a minus, which is unoccupied buildings. So there's been a lot of mention about companies, hasn't there? And we sort of assume they're going to be using the buildings. So if there isn't enough unoccupied buildings, then the demand's a bit lower. So thinking about that logically, does that mean we need to zone more things so their buildings are unoccupied, which then will push the demand up, which sort of seemed the opposite way round, doesn't it, than how it used to be before? But yeah, very interesting the way this is going to work. Looking forward to diving into this a little bit more. Because it sort of seems like with Cities Skylines 1, a plot would be abandoned and another building would come up in its place, or you just delete it, because people didn't like abandoned buildings around them. Whereas now it seems that the buildings will be there but be unoccupied, and then perhaps another company then moves in. That's the way it's going to work. But yeah, I mean, that's just a nice change again. And if we also have a look at this little sentence, I'll read it to you. It says, we can extract resources locally to increase profits for industrial companies. And I'm looking at this picture here thinking, is that like a forestry? There's a lot of trees. I mean, I'm thinking it must be a forestry sort of industry with a couple of little buildings at the end of a tiny road. So does that mean we're going to get forestry and the other basics, oil ore and farming in the basic game? If we do, that would be great. We'll have to see. We saw farming, didn't we, in the picture earlier? So now I've said that, I'm pretty sure farming is going to be in there, and forestry. So maybe just those two, and the fact you can draw your zones any shape you like. So very good. I'm liking that. And then offices, they weren't actually in the demand bar section. We only saw a few of those, didn't we? But again, office demand is pushed up by customers wanting their goods, this software, that's been mentioned numerous times, and the types of offices can change depending on the age range of customers, with older customers wanting banking services, financial products, and younger wanting media products. So again, even what type of buildings and companies we've got in the office buildings is going to change depending on the age of our citizens. So yeah, lots of things tying in together, which I think is brilliant. And then we've got this overall, what they call city specialization. So we can increase efficiency and profit with this city specialization. How do you get one of these? Well, you need to have similar industries, companies and offices in close proximity to each other and working on or using similar goods. So let's just pick the software good, which we know about. We know someone's going to make the software, someone else is going to take it, someone else is going to change it into other items, then it's going to be sold. So if all of those are close together, at some point you're going to hit a level, again I'm hypothesizing, that triggers this city specialization. And the fact it's a city specialization, I've just thought of this now, tells me that it's not going to be just like a district specialization, which is obvious in the name, but if it's the whole city, now that is, how the heck do we balance things to get a whole city specialization? That's just blowing my mind how we're going to do that. But that's going to bring bonuses city-wide as well. So how much control we have over these goods and things and these services and where they are remains to be seen. But again, a huge change from Cities Skylines 1. Can't wait to find out. So now looking at land value, as we said in Cities Skylines 1, you could just throw a load of services and parks down in the new area and bish bash bosh, the land value was through the roof, making an area highly attractive. Now much more needs to be taken into account. We can see on this picture here we have the land value, high and low. There's also a separate building land value, which a lot of these is pretty high as well. But citizens can affect land value by being happy and paying higher rents, plus if all their needs are met, and their services, jobs, shopping, all that sort of thing, that will slowly increase the land value over time. If you don't set your taxes correctly and citizens can't afford it, they're going to eventually leave and the building may become abandoned. If that happens, an interesting quote, it says abandoned buildings can become occupied by homeless citizens, but due to the constant disrepair, the building will eventually collapse. So are we going to see homeless citizens around the city? It sort of sounds like it, doesn't it? That's going to be shown in the game in some way. Also, companies take land value and also distance to transportation options to ship out their goods, which all come off of their profit margin. Any money they have left over after paying their rent and shipping out the goods goes towards levelling up their building or their house if it's commercial or residential. So again, so much more detail in the Dev Diary by Colossal Order on their website about the intricacies of land value. Even I've just barely touched the surface. If that's of interest to you, when this video is finished, there'll be a link below. You can go and check that out and read over it all. Right, now we get to the other topic, which is signature buildings. We spoke about that a bit earlier on. So these are described as unique ploppable zone buildings that cover residential, commercial, industrial and office. Each have their own requirements to unlock and each has their own positive effect, which I think we saw a list of those last week in a Dev Diary video. We'll have a look at some of those again in a moment. So in picture 17 we can see here a signature residential building. As I mentioned before, I think these are better than the old unique buildings in a way because they fit in with what you've got already in the city, but just that little extra dash of flair on top, nice turret, slightly taller and bigger, looks a bit smarter than the other buildings, and of course brings those benefits we spoke about. In the next picture we have a commercial signature building, looks like some sort of shopping mall or something like that. Got some built-in parking, but yeah, that's really going to add to your area as well, this big complex. And with parking there, can we adjust the parking fees? Well, we've seen that's something we were talking about earlier. And in the next picture we have this lovely green looking office signature building, loving the look of that. But also on the left there we can see some of the benefits. So plus 1% office efficiency, so that's citywide, plus 5% interest in university education, plus 1% university graduation chance, so all citywide, And then the last one is an area of effect, +5 well-being within 1 kilometer. So again, you want to make sure these are spread out and have the benefits for the local areas, which will be needed as well. So well-being, where there's other things, I'm sure there will be, but then the city-wide, you know, you can place them anywhere for that. So excellent. I like this new approach to unique buildings, especially with that local area effect and the city-wide benefits. A nice game mechanic for something for you to work towards, to hit the requirements to unlock these, and then the benefits that you get from them as well. So all positively moving your city forward. I'm glad you stuck around to the end, because just one little thing that I've just spotted, and it says on the screen there, Paradox Mods. Now what's that all about? That is something we haven't seen before. I think, was that sort of seen before in Surviving Mars? Yeah, I think it was. I might be wrong, but there was mods, wasn't there, that you could get within the ecosystem of Paradox and in-game. A bit like how Factorio does it, rather than... Oh, sorry, that still uses the Steam Workshop, doesn't it? Bad example, but... Yeah, so is that a bit of a change we're seeing with mods coming up in the future? Ooh, watch this space. So, which additions to the new zones and signature buildings are you most looking forward to? Let me know in the comments below. And if there's anything I missed, like I said, missing my contact lenses at the moment, let me know about that too. And don't forget to subscribe before you go, so you'll be back here on Monday as we take a deep dive into the City Services Dev Diary. Have a great day. Thanks for your support. Take care. Bye-bye.